Is there room for another small RC on the market? Yes, because they're small. Welcome back to the Skill Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look, run, and review of the new Carisma MSA-1E 2.0. This is the 2.0 spec. These are revised over the original MSA-1E. I'm presuming that was the 1.0. Maybe they didn't call it that. But this is a 24th scale RC crawler. There are two. There is the Subaru Brat. These are both licensed, I might add, too. The Subaru Brat or the 1989 Mitsubishi Pajero XLW. Two very unique vehicles, not something we've seen a lot of here in North America, but they're pretty universally well-known brands. We're going to keep the Pajero in the box for right now. Let's open up the Brat and see what that's all about. Quickest unboxing ever. You know, I made this knife. Well, I assembled it anyway. The features and specifications are all on the box. It's a nicely colored box, lots of nice looking graphics on it. This has a new 130 motor and new high torque gearbox. So those are two definite changes over the original. I didn't have the original, so I can't do a fair comparison, but we're going to do our best to get this out of the box and give it a good once over. I've already ripped the box. There's more tape on it too. I was not expecting so much tape. Upon opening the box, you will find a manual. There are two boxes here. One has the radio in it, transmitter, of course. These are all ready to run, so you will get the battery, charger, double A's for the transmitter, and here's that transmitter. Let's get that out. Lickety split. Not too bad. Can I drive it one-handed? Yes. I think that's always a good start for any RC car. Pretty basic remote analog controls. There is the ability to change your steering and throttle reversal, and it looks like there are 3 different options for throttle too. I'm sure we'll find more as we look more into the manual. Okay, let's get the truck out of here though. Let's see what that's all about. Bubble wrapped for your protection. And there it is. Nicely detailed Lexan body. The windows are stickers. You know how I feel about that. Let's zoom in here. These are tiny. They deserve to be shown as big as possible. Some nice plastic details on this as well. We've got a plastic roll cage with some light buckets. We've got some light buckets on a front bumper with a stinger guard as well. Some nice sliders. That's something that you don't see a lot of in this size, that's nice. That's good to see. Some pretty darn beefy looking axles, which are modular. You can take pieces on and off, so if you do break something, you can replace it. Looks like we've got dog bones up front on our steering. Some reasonable amount of steering there. Sounds like it's got a servo saver on there, which it does. Coil shocks, not oil filled as far as I can tell, but a decent amount of travel. Fairly bouncy like we see on all of these 24th scale vehicles. This low front bumper isn't going to do you a lot of favors trying to rock crawl. It does hang quite low. There is the option to raise up that bumper a little bit so it could get a little further out of the way, but it isn't going to be a pure rock crawler like, say, I don't know, a purpose-built SCX 24. How is this body attached? Let's see here. Is it Velcro? It is Velcro. All right, that's good to see. And on the back too, not a hinge, just Velcroed on there, okay. How best to describe this? Plastic rails, a couple of different options for mounting your shocks, but then it's quite a deep vertical plate here that houses the skid and the transmission. It's a big, beefy transmission. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. Holy cow. Nice big motor. That is definitely an improvement. I think that's probably the largest motor I've seen in a 24 scale crawler in some time. Certainly bigger than anything Axial or RC four-wheel drive or Team Associated has done. So that's a good thing to see. We do have a receiver here, which does have the ESC built into it. So ESC receiver combo. Steering servo up front mounted on the axle, which is pretty standard for this scale. But this is, I gotta say, this is definitely a different looking chassis. Some really interesting stuff going on here. Certainly different from everything I've seen. I'm not sure if this is a carryover. I have to believe that it is. Yeah, okay, so the bumper sits quite low on this model, but it does not interfere with the front steering servo on axle, so that's good. Seems like they've got all their clearances in mind there. Plastic links, 4-link front and 4-link rear. Plastic drive shafts as well. Pillow balls for installation of all those links, so easy to replace those if they do bust on you. And what else have we got? We've got battery compartment here in the rear of the chassis, so weight reasonably low on the chassis. How do you get at that battery? You just there's a little tab right here, and you just kind of pull that and it comes out. They include a 7.2 volt nickel metal hydride 130 milliamp hour battery. So not a LiPo like you get in some of the other 24 scale trucks, but that should be good enough to get you started. I'm keen to see. I do like that battery system. That's a nice way to lock that in place. That is actually pretty good. Separate, like I said, separate steering servo, so you could replace that if you wanted to. You're not locked into using the one that comes with. But we're gonna give it a shot here. We'll get the batteries in the transmitter and we'll fire everything up. It is rather heavy down low where you want it. Those axle pumpkins are massive, and I have to believe those are metal gears in there or depleted uranium because they are so heavy. One word about the wheels and tires. Those tires are glued onto these rims. Standard looking hex though, so you could remove those and replace them with something else. Not a foam to be seen or heard or felt. Those are definitely just a vented wheel with a rubber tire. But reasonably grippy, pretty hard compound though, even for a 24 scale. But let's see how torquey this little truck is with that beefy motor. That is a big motor. It's a lot of motor. Okay, let's get the batteries in, put the body back on, and give this thing a go. All right, we've got the transmitter on. We're gonna plug in the battery here. And is there an on switch? There must be. But where is it? There we go. Okay. On. Green light. That's always a good sign. Plop the body back on there. I do like the look of that Subaru Brat body. That does look pretty good. Ooh, nice responsive steering. It's actually a pretty decent steering servo. Okay, that's in the highest speed. Great low end. Easy to control. That's pretty good to see. Now let's see how it does in a little torque test here. That feels like a pretty good amount of get up and go, and it's got some pretty decent clearance. And like I said, because that weight is in the axles, I mean, that's the majority of the weight of this vehicle. It seems pretty nicely planted. Let's try to make that a little more challenging. And of course, it's high centering on my knuckle, but let's give it one more shot. It's got plenty of torque. I gotta say, that's actually fairly impressive. That transmission is huge, so I guess it shouldn't be that big of a surprise that it's doing as well as it's doing. It's certainly like, actually, let's do a comparison. A comparison, how novel. Let's pull down here. Let's pull down the SCX-24 Bronco, which is probably, in terms of the size of these two vehicles, I think they're probably pretty close. Brat's probably not that big in real life. It's maybe slightly larger. Maybe it's not a true 24th scale, but it's pretty close. Let's take a look at the transmissions though, because that's definitely going to, this is going to shock you. For the sake of doing the comparison, Axial uses an 050 motor and Carisma is using a 130 motor. It is a massive change, and it is readily apparent in the amount of torque, wheel speed, and capability that this is offering. I am really impressed. I'm not super impressed with the way the transmission is laid out in the Carisma, seeing that the motor, which is not necessarily not heavy in a truck this small, I don't like seeing it positioned way up high. It would have been great if they could have flipped this somehow in order to just maybe even have it on its side. I would have also liked to have seen a more standard style chassis instead of this kind of strange, somewhere in between rail / TVP. It probably could have been laid out a little differently, but I am pretty impressed with the amount of power, so I'm willing to forgive that, I think. It's surprising. Another thing, not thrilled to see. Hex hardware is completely missing from this build. There is a ton of Phillips head, I don't think it's JAS, I think it is Phillips head screws. So that would be something I'd like to replace at some point. Aside from the weird layout and the probably less than great looking tire combo, and the huge pumpkins, I honestly, I think it's actually pretty decent. I think there's probably some real potential here. Despite what weight seems to exist in these axles, they are metal outshafts, but the ring and pinion are plastic gears. So that's certainly going to be a failure point at some point in the future probably, but easy to get into these and easy to replace if you need to. The hex is also non-standard. It is a 7mm hex, but it does have this back portion that you tie into the actual pin, the drive pin there. So it's not quite exactly the same thing as everybody else, but because it is a normal 7mm hex on the outside, you can use any aftermarket wheel. The Carisma MSA-1E 2.0 does have some very significant upgrades over the original MSA-1E. That higher torque transmission, the much larger motor, the 43mm ATSS tires that they include. Those three things alone definitely make this a much more compelling choice for your next small-scale RC car. It actually is pretty good. I wasn't expecting much. I've had limited success with Carisma in the past, but this actually is a very interesting choice that you might want to make for your next small-scale crawler. It's impressive spec out of the box, and based on how it performed outside in my miniature crawl course, I was pretty impressed, and certainly something I would give a second look to, especially for the price that they're offering these at. I'll be sure to put links down below so you can check out all the options from Carisma, including the new MSA-1E 2.0s. And since Carisma sent me both the Pajero and the Brat, I thought it would be a good opportunity to share this wealth with one of my viewers. So if you are interested and you would like to get one of these MSA-1E 2.0s free, I will be giving this one away. All you have to do, like the video, put a comment down below. I'll have Rebecca reach out in about a month and we'll get this sent out to you free of charge anywhere in the world. That's my personal guarantee, not a guarantee. So there you go. That's going to do it, I think. Thank you very much to Carisma for sending these along. I'm pretty chuffed with how this actually performs and does. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.